Right, what a day of hockey that was. Two instant classics, a very enjoyable game of hockey between the Netherlands and Germany, a very, very enjoyable game between Belgium and England, and then a decent game between Spain and Russia that won't really get talked about much because in the grand scheme of things, Spain were expected to win, they were expected to win big, perhaps bigger than they did. Their first quarter was impeccable. Pau Quimada, despite his age of 36 or 7 now, is still an incredible player, very, very underrated throughout his career. But Spain probably wish that they scored more against Russia, especially considering the result now between England and Belgium, which we'll get to later. But first, the classic between Netherlands and Germany. And the Netherlands really took the game by the scruff of the neck. They started with a high press with intensity. They were forcing German errors. They forced that error for the PC. Because of the high press, they got the ball up there. They forced the PC. It's not the greatest of first goals, but it's a goal nonetheless on the PC. Then they got the second with an incredible, there's no word to describe it. The best pass, or one of the best passes I've ever seen on a hockey pitch, from center to end to Purser and Brinkman combined. And that was something that I pointed out in my preview. Purser, Brinkman and Herzberger combination is deadly. Again, they showed that 2-0. And then Berman Black decided to just throw away his man of the match performance. It's a shame because he was excellent. He was so damn good. But he gets a green card, rightfully so. And is it Larsberg that gives away the penalty stroke? Christopher Roer converts it. Maurits Visser comes into the game with no warm-up. So he's not expected to save the next penalty corner from Windvede. Windvede converts it to 2. And now all of a sudden, the Netherlands need to win big against Wales. Yeah, against Wales to have a chance at finishing first in that group. Now the advantage that they have is that they face Wales after Germany faces France. So they will know exactly how much they need to score. But because Germany scored 8 against Wales and won by a margin of 7 goals, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be very interesting. It keeps things interesting at the top, so that's good. Belgium-England. Belgium-England next. Whew. What can we say about that game that hasn't been said? Belgium was non-existent throughout the game. They got 1 goal on a penalty stroke that obviously would have gone in if it wasn't stopped with the head accidentally on the penalty corner. But apart from that, Belgium looked lackadaisical. They really were very profligate in possession. Hospital passes, missed controls, missed passes, not converting the PCs. The PCs were 0 for 16 in this game. They were 2 for 16 in the previous game. And obviously many, many cards. That was something that the rest were briefed on before the day, probably, that if there's anything that happens, you hand out cards. And although I can understand that, it's just slightly annoying, obviously, as a spectator to see 10 players here, 8 players there, 9 players there. It's not great. I can understand it, though. England were very, very good. Zach Wallace had one of the games of his life. And as I pointed out in the preview as well, Ashley Jackson and Barry Middleton retired from international duty. And although those are excellent players, and Ashley Jackson is one of my favourites, that might be a gift in disguise from England, because now every player needs to step up. More responsibilities are handed out throughout the team rather than to just those 2 players. And England has done very well to capitalise on their opportunities. Very peculiar though that Danny Carey wasn't coaching. Maybe he had a positive test, maybe he was just ill, who knows. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens next game. Spain-England takes a whole nother level of importance, a whole other dimension. Belgium will need to absolutely demolish Russia. Will that happen? Possibly so. I think it will, but the Spain versus England game is going to be very interesting, but we'll see what happens. So, if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.